everyone, batching into today's first video. We're going to have a look at the weather for next week's 10 days. For today's first video, that's going to take us to around the 24th of May. We'll be able to extend out beyond that with the extended GFS and ECM ensembles, maybe run to around a couple of weeks. Have a look at Beijing Climate Centre next 40 days today as well. We're going to begin in the tropical Atlantic because we haven't actually started the tropical storm season yet, but we already have a tropical disturbance. So we're going to begin at the National Hurricane Centre, and we'll have a look at that and see what's going on. That's where we're going to start our video today. Just say that coming up later on today, we're going to have a look at the bank holiday weekend. So that should be quite interesting watch. I think that's update number 3 or 4 for the bank holiday. And, of course, we're also going to have our second weekend broadcast from America, which will be released quite late tonight, probably after 11 o'clock tonight. But that should be quite an interesting watch for anybody who's in the United States. Got a little bit of a forecast for them. Right then, so just say if you're enjoying the content at the moment, then please can you like, share and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're trying to get the subs up, so please subscribe to the channel. And of course, let us know in the comments what you're thinking. Right then, so here we go. And as I say, I've already got a disturbance in the tropical Atlantic. This is very, very early days to be seeing this. But yes, we've got this yellow X just here to the southwest of Florida. Let's see what the National Hurricane Centre are saying about it then. It's disturbance 1. And you've got a 10% chance of tropical cyclone formation in the next 48 hours. They're saying a broad area of low pressure is expected to develop in a couple of days near or just south of the Bahamas. Environmental conditions appear conducive for gradual development of this system, and a subtropical depression or storm is likely to form this weekend. The system is expected to move gradually northeastward over the western Atlantic through early next week. So very early days for that. It looks like it could either become like a subtropical depression or possibly even a tropical storm. Very early days. If you have a look at the 5-day tropical weather outlook, then this is how National Hurricane Centre are forecasting this to develop. So it's starting just there, and this red shaded area just here is where it's off to. And there is a little bit of a write-up about that as well. So, again, just going over what we've already said, really, a broad area of low pressure is expected to develop in next couple of days near the Bahamas, and environmental conditions are conducive for development of this system into a subtropical or potentially tropical storm over the weekend. It looks like it's going to be generally out at sea, so probably not affecting the United States directly, at least not initially. But really, it's just the fact this is very, very early days for this. It's only the middle of May. You can get tropical storms at this time of the year. Very unusual to do it, but it has happened before, so it's not unprecedented. But I just wonder whether this is like a heads up, really, a signal that we're in for it a little bit with the tropical storm season. This summer and into autumn. We have got quite a warm tropical Atlantic. This is the sea surface temperature anomaly map from NOAA. So around here, 30 degrees north to the equator, just here, we do see that sea surface temperature anomaly is like either average or warmer than average through quite a bit of this area through here. So I just wonder whether this is like a heads up, really, saying that you know, we are in for it a little bit with the tropical storm and hurricane season this year. You never know. Sometimes you can have a warmer than average sea surface temperature only in the Atlantic, but the season still doesn't really get going. And that often is due to bringing dust off Africa that sort of inhibits, in the upper level winds, it sort of inhibits the development of these systems. But it's very early days, and I think what we're probably going to do is look back at past years that started with very early tropical developments in Maine, see whether there's any connection between that and like bigger more active than usual hurricane season. So that could be something to explore in the days, weeks ahead. But definitely we've got a development here. It's really early days for that, and it doesn't look like it'll reach hurricane status, but certainly like subtropical or tropical storm is possible over the weekend, which is really, really early days for that. So we shall see, but all looking quite interesting at the moment in the tropical Atlantic. Right, let's move on. I'm going to have a look at the central temperature next. So this is how the CT is currently looking. Provisional up to yesterday, the 13th of May. We're standing at 10.8, which is an anomaly of just 0.1 of a degree above average. So basically about average. And if we was to compare to 81 to 2010 average, we would be a little bit below average, and that's a big reduction from where the CT was just a few days ago. So this cold spell that we've had, particularly cold at night, has definitely sort of done its damage. Let's have a look at the max and mins for this. So that's how the maximum's looking. They're still holding up not too bad. 16.0 is 1 degree above average still, provisional up to yesterday. But if we look at the mins, I think that will tell somewhat of a different story. Let's have a look at those. And yes, we see it. That's why the CT has come down so much, because the average minimum at the moment for the central temperature region is only 5.2, and that's over 1 degree below average. That's provisional again to the 14th. So yes, it does look as though we have seen a very significant, very substantial reduction in the central England temperature over the past few days. But I think it's going to start to lift up again, particularly as we go through to next week, because there is signs of much warmer weather on the way. More about that in a moment. These are the 500 millibar height anomaly flow charts for the next week to 10 days from the Penn State University. So we've got the ECMWF on the top, and the GFS, which we'll have a look in a moment, is on the bottom. So 500 millibars is an area in the atmosphere, high pressure and low pressure, are being moved by the jet stream running above. Red extrapolates high pressure, blue to low pressure. So these are the means flow charts for the 7 to 10 day time frame. We can see it with the ECM. We've got a big ridge of above average heights, high pressure, sitting over and to the east of the country, with below average heights out in the Atlantic, and that pulls up the wind like from a southerly direction. So that turns us a lot milder. It turns us significantly warmer potentially. And with high pressure sitting over and to the east of the country, you're expecting a lot of settled weather with that. Of course, the trough of low pressure in the Atlantic is trying to break that ridge down. How successful that breakdown of a ridge is to be determined. But certainly that could bring up some very warm air as we go into the 7 to 10 day time frame. Brings up the air from the south, turns us potentially very warm. Temperatures may be mid to upper 20s Celsius, wouldn't rule that out. But if a trough of low pressure comes in from the west, that might provide showers or thunderstorms. The GFS is similar, but it has more energy in the Atlantic. So it still has the above average heights sitting over and to the east and to the south of us. But it does have a lot more energy with this low pressure in the Atlantic just here. So overall, that's a more unsettled scenario. That is based on the midnight run of the GFS, which is the first run of the day. Remember, the GFS is run 4 times a day: midnight, 6 o'clock in the morning, midday, and 6 o'clock in the evening. The midnight GFS run was a rather unsettled run. You're going to see something in a moment that's quite different from the 6 o'clock run. So again, we're seeing a lot of variability, intra-run variability from the GFS, as we have had over the past few weeks with all of the model uncertainty. But the midnight run was a little bit more unsettled, actually, and you'll see what the 6 o'clock run is showing in a moment. These are the GFS upper air temperature and precipitation ensembles for the next couple of weeks. So the black line is the 30-year upper air temperature average. We're at Mansfield in the north of England today. So we're still very substantially below average at the moment. It was another very cold night across many parts of the country last night. Gradually now we're going to see a recovery in the temperature. It's going to be a slow old process. So you see how the temperature sort of lifts up slightly and then flatlines and then really later in the weekend into next week is when the temperature properly lifts up. So it's a slow process to lift the temperature up. Nevertheless, I think we're pretty much done now with the coldest of the nights. There could be another quite cold night down in the south tonight with clear skies. Might get low enough, certainly for ground frost, but I think we are now seeing an end to these very harsh night frost, and we should gradually be on the up really from here on in, hopefully, because it's been causing all sorts of havoc in the garden. So by the time we get through to next week, we're actually quite significantly above average. It looks like we're going to have a warm spell of weather coming up next week. Again, temperatures could lift up into like the mid 20s Celsius, of course, next week, maybe a little bit higher than that, and generally staying on the mild and average side really as we go through to the last week of May. Precipitation wise, we see a lot of dry weather coming up in the next few days, plenty of dry conditions on the way. It just gradually starts to turn a little bit more unsettled as we move in towards the last week of May. That's this period just here. And then beyond that, it looks like it goes more unsettled for the last week of the month. Again, that's extended range, though. So we've been seeing this a lot within the GFS ensembles lately, that it wants to turn things more unsettled from around day 10 onwards consistently. But it never seems to get any closer than that. There are one or two very slight precipitation spikes appearing just there and just there. So that has got a little bit closer compared to yesterday, but convincingly the unsettled spell is like from here, and that's not getting any closer. So again, it remains to be seen whether we do turn it more unsettled or not in the last week of the month, but certainly in the next week to 10 days, this period just here, there is a lot of dry weather on offer. Temperature anomalies from the 14th to 22nd of May, still a little bit below average. Most parts of Europe again looking pretty cold away from that southeast corner. Keep in mind with this that it has reduced that cold average temperature anomaly quite a bit from the past couple of days. So this is gradually beginning to trend a little bit warmer, but it may not be until like the weekend that we see these temperature anomaly maps going slightly above average. We should see about that. But certainly for the next week anyway, from the 14th to 22nd of May, it's still below average. Precipitation anomalies from the 14th to 22nd of May, they're drier than average in most parts of the country. So cool and dry still generally is the trend. But I think these will be trending, well, they'll be staying dry, I think, for most of us, but they'll be trending warmer, I would have thought, in the next few days. That's how the GFS is looking for Sunday then. So on Sunday, we've got a ridge of high pressure across France with some lower pressure out to the north and the west, so we're bringing in like a westerly to southwesterly flow then. With this, it's probably mainly dry and probably near normal with temperatures, maybe a little bit warmer than average for the south, a little bit more in south away for Scotland. Could be some outbreaks of rain with that. Into the early part of next week, then the ridge begins to build up from the south. This takes us through to Tuesday. High pressure then is beginning to take over. It's starting to turn a lot drier and warmer. And then through the middle and second half of next week, that high pressure really does take over the scene. So we're up to Thursday now, a week away. High pressure is sort of centred over to the east of the country. Winds are coming in from the east to southeast direction. That should be a warm direction for the wind. And of course, with high pressure, lots of dry weather, plenty of sunshine. And this goes on into the end of next week. It's starting to look really very warm now. This is Friday 22nd of May. The high sort of centred over Germany then, and we really are starting to pull up some very warm air from the south or southeast. Upper air temperature show about 10 Celsius isotherm is pushed through the country. We're nearly getting up to 15 Celsius at 850 HPA down in the south, so that could definitely lift surface temperatures to like mid-20s, definitely, possibly at the outside, upper 20s Celsius can't be ruled out. With that, so going into the 80s Fahrenheit with this GFS run at the end of next week, I think. This is the weekend of the 23rd, 24th and 25th May. It's bank holiday weekend. This GFS run again with high pressure sitting over and to the east. Winds are wafting up from a southerly to southeast direction. It looks very warm, possibly you would say a bit on the hot side actually with this. It does potentially look rather hot with temperatures again into the 80s Fahrenheit. That's how we look at day 10, which is Sunday the 24th of May. And the high pressure again over Scandinavia, bringing in those winds from an east to southeast direction. All I'd say with this is that it's very different to what the midnight run was showing for this period. By this point, midnight run was turning things quite a lot cooler and more unsettled. So it's all to be revealed, really, what's going to happen. Will we pull off a bit of a heat wave as we go through next week or not? It is to be revealed. as the upper air temperatures again for day 10 looking mainly dry and very warm. And this high pressure festival for 6 o'clock GFS run just goes on really, keeps us dry, very warm, potentially hot right the way through towards the end of the month. This is as far as we can get to, which is Saturday the 30th of May, so we're nearly at month's end. And we're still looking mostly dry, high pressure dominated and very warm. Later on, you're going to get to see what the midday run is showing for the bank holiday weekend. Will it continue this idea of warm, potentially quite hot weather for bank holiday weekend? Or will it go back to what the midnight run was showing, which was something a lot more unsettled and cool? It'll be quite interesting, I think, to see the bank holiday update that's coming up later on. This is how the GM is looking. So again, high pressure building up from the southwest on Sunday. Keeps England and Wales mostly dry. Scotland quite unsettled. Through the course of next week, early part of next week anyway, the high pressure again increasingly takes over. We start to pull up some warmth from the south. This is Wednesday. Certainly turning a lot warmer across England and Wales, temperatures mid-20s, but then low pressure beginning to move in from off the Atlantic. That could act as the trigger for some heavy showers on Thursday, possibly a bit of thunder. And then after that, the GM turns us more unsettled with a westerly flow breaking through. As we move up to day 10, that will start to bring cooler air and outbreaks of rain in from off the Atlantic. The GM is always a little bit more unsettled compared to the other models I've noticed, but that doesn't necessarily mean it is wrong. And the midnight GFS run was in that sort of, go for that sort of scenario. So don't rule out the GM, turning things cooler quicker next week and more unsettled, giving us a rather mixed bank holiday weekend. And we've got the ECMWF, and again, we're looking at high pressure building up from the southwest on Sunday. Low pressure is bringing outbreaks of rain to Scotland. Through to the the middle part of next week, again, the high pressure inflates close to the country. That turns us mainly dry by the middle of next week. Plenty of sunshine and also warm or very warm. Temperatures lifting into mid-20s Celsius there. The ECM then continues this high pressure through to the end of next week, over just to the east of the country. There's those winds pulling up from the south-southeasterly direction. That's bringing warm, potentially very warm air in from off the continent. So similar to what the GFS is showing for the end of next week. Not quite as hot with the upper air temperatures, but it still is quite a warm air mass for the time of year. So most of next week is dry and very warm, but we get through to the bank holiday weekend, which is Saturday, begins Saturday 23rd of May, and the ECM just wants to start things a little bit more unsettled. This could suggest some heavy showers, maybe a bit of thunder moving in from the south and the west. And by the time we get through to day 10, which is Sunday the 24th of May, that's how we look. So high pressure then is over Scandinavia, winds are in from the east. There could be some showers across more southern parts of the country, maybe even some thunder suggested with that. Still quite warm, I think, with those easterly winds, but nowhere near as hot or as settled as the 6 o'clock GFS run. This is the precipitation forecast based on that ECM run from Tibetio.com. We'll rattle through this very quickly because there's just lots and lots of dry weather coming up over the next few days. We have got some heavy rain on Sunday across Scotland, so it will turn quite wet across Scotland, possibly to Northern Ireland and North West England actually, if the rain gets far enough south. But once that gets out of the way, again, rain becomes mostly confined to the far northwest. Many places under this area of high pressure that's building through next week are dry. And then there's a suggestion of those heavy showers just beginning to move in around Friday, Saturday, just beginning to push in from off the Atlantic. The ECM actually doesn't make all that much of them, but it does suggest there could be some heavy showers, maybe a bit of thunder up the western side of the country there. And then as high pressure takes over across Scandinavia, that precipitation sort of turns tail and moves away. So not a great deal of rain, particularly for more southern and east areas. There's virtually no rain on offer with the ECM for the next 10 days. So the dry spell will continue for more southern and east areas. In the north, there will be a little bit of rain at times. These are the options on the table within the ECM ensembles for day 10, which gets us to the 24th of May from the Icelandic Met Office. Have 13 members of the ECM ensembles, including the operational run, that have a Scandinavian high and winds going in from the east. This low pressure in the Atlantic is actually being pushed back westwards a little bit by those easty winds. 9, just here in this top middle box, have high pressure centred over the top of the country. That means dry, fine and potentially very warm to hot weather with it. Another 9 have high pressure just out to our west. Winds are a little bit more northwesterly with that. Lots of dry weather on offer. 8 with low pressure to our south and southeast, high pressure up to the north. Winds are sort of in from a northeasterly direction. That's a bit more unsettled, possibly a bit cooler as well. 6 with high pressure more towards the north of Scotland. Very similar though to what the operational is showing. Winds are in from the east with that. And then 6 just here has high pressure to our south, low pressure out to the northwest. That's a little bit more westerly, perhaps in line with what the GM and the midnight GFS run is showing. So actually the ECM ensembles still have high pressure as the main player, I think. Most of them still have high pressure as the main player by day 10, but it does remain to be seen exactly where the high pressure is sitting. In 2 weeks' time, these are the options that we've got. This gets us to the 29th of May. Have 26 members of the ECM ensembles then with high pressure sitting more or less over the top of the country. Obviously, that's a very settled scenario. And 25 with high pressure to our south and some slightly weaker pressure up to the north. And that's a little bit more showery with that one. Overall, it looks like the ECM ensembles want to continue high pressure as a major player through towards the end of the month. And then finally, we've got the 500 millibar height anomalies from the Beijing Climate Centre for the next 40 days. These are broken down into 10-day periods. The first 10-day period will take us from the 16th to 25th of May. The coming 10 days has high pressure centred over top of the country and to our east, northeast as well. So obviously, there's going to be lots of dry and warm weather involved with that. The next 10-day period takes us from the 26th of May to the 4th of June. Above average heights then to our north and also to our west-southwest. Some slightly weaker pressure through here, but I don't think it will be particularly unsettled. So I would imagine that keeps us mainly dry and quite warm through to the beginning of June. Next 10-day period is the 5th to the 14th of June. Again, above average heights. Generally just covering much of the North Atlantic. Really some slightly weaker pressure around the UK. It doesn't look like it's a trough, particularly. Just slightly weaker with the pressure. I think overall Beijing Climate Centre is pointing to quite a settled sort of first half to June and should be quite warm too. And then the last 10-day period takes us from the 15th to 24th of May of June. Certainly nothing particularly alarming into the second half of June either, with above average heights continuing to be very close to the country. So on the face of it, we are in for a continuation of a lot of high pressure. So we've had loads of high pressure through this spring, of course, and it looks like overall it's high pressure that's dominating as we move on into the early part of summer, if we believe the Beijing Climate Centre. Of course, that's all very speculative. The more immediate time frame is where things are quite interesting. Next week, it looks like we definitely build up some higher pressure through the early middle part of next week. So that turns us drier and potentially warm to very warm temperatures into mid-20s by the middle of next week for England and Wales, I would have thought. Where do things go after that? Do we quickly break down the ridge and turn cooler and more unsettled for Bank Holiday weekend? Or do we see the high pressure intensifying and potentially bringing a heat wave with it? That's what the 6 o'clock GFS run is showing. Chance of a heat wave by the Bank Holiday weekend, with temperatures pushing up into the 80s Fahrenheit. The moment I would tend to go more of the ECM, I think, which is turning very warm through next week, possibly by the end of next week, rather on the hot side, but also breaking things down over the Bank Holiday weekend itself. I think the GFS 6 o'clock run, with that continuous idea of continuous high pressure, is a little bit over the top, but I wouldn't rule it out. So it's going to be very interesting to see the model output over the next few days and see where this is going. Are we going to get our first heat wave before the summer actually gets going? We shall see. Right, we shall be back later on with the Bank Holiday update. Of course, that will be focusing on all of this very interesting time frame. So we'll be using the midday run for that one, and we'll see whether the midday run is going with the high pressure fest of the 6 o'clock run, or whether it reverts back to that rather more unsettled Bank Holiday scenario from the midnight run. That'll be quite interesting to see. And also, then late on tonight, we're going to have the latest update to a weekend forecast for the United States. So anybody in America who's watching this, we're going to have a forecast for you for the coming week in the United States. That will be YouTube only. We won't be embedding that to Gasworthy's at this stage. Gasworthy's.com, I should say. Right, that's all for now, and thanks so much for watching. Come back later on when we shall have a look at Bank Holiday weekend. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and let us know in the comments what you thought to the video. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.